Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down one of the most hyped speeches in recent financial history to figure out what it all means for the economy's next move.
All right, let's just jump right in. This quote, it pretty much nails the vibe. You had the entire financial world, pretty much everyone, holding their breath, waiting to hear what just one guy was going to say at this really critical moment.
And that moment came in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. All eyes were locked on Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, because honestly, the global economy was standing at a massive crossroads.
So here's the pickle the Fed was in. On the one hand, you've got all these signs that things are slowing down, right? People aren't spending as much, global growth is sputtering. But on the other hand, you've got these new tariffs pushing the price of everything up. I mean, they were literally stuck between a rock and a hard place.
So what do? It's the multi-trillion-dollar question. Do you cut interest rates to get the economy going again, or do you hold firm to stop prices from getting out of control? And here's the thing. To really get why this was such a big deal, you have to understand that a rate cut isn't just a rate cut. Not all of them were created equal.
Yeah, think of it like this. A rate cut can be one of two things. Is it a vitamin shot, something you take to stay healthy and keep things humming along? Or is it emergency medicine for an economy that's already in the E?
Okay, so the Fed, it's kind of like the heart of the whole financial world. And interest rates, that's the heartbeat. When they change the rate, they're either speeding up or slowing down the flow of money through the entire economy. A rate cut is supposed to get that blood pumping faster to stimulate things. And this is the absolute key difference. You've got your preventative cut, which is basically the Fed saying, hey, the economy's pretty healthy, but we see a storm cloud on the horizon, so let's take an umbrella just in case. Then you have the recessionary cut. That's the Fed yelling, the economy is sick, we need to rush it to the hospital. See the difference? One is about confidence, the other is a full-blown crisis signal.
And that was what had everyone on the edge of their seats. The big question wasn't just if they were going to cut rates, it was why. Was this going to be a confident little tweak or a desperate, all-hands-on-deck rescue mission?
So when Powell finally got up to speak, he had to walk this insane tightrope. He needed to acknowledge both problems, the slowdown and the inflation, and somehow reassure everyone without making it sound like he was panicking. So first things first, he threw a bone to the people worried about a slowdown. He said, and this is a quote, "Downside risks to the labor market are rising." Now, in Fed speak, that's a giant flashing sign that says, yes, we are thinking about cutting rates. It was exactly what the market wanted to hear. But then, almost immediately, he pivoted. He talked about those tariffs pushing prices up. And even though he called it short-lived, he basically said, look, we can't let this little price jump turn into a massive, long-term inflation nightmare. So that was the other side of the coin, the caution. And that was really the whole point of the speech. He was reminding everyone that the Fed has two jobs: keep prices stable, and keep people employed. And right now, those two jobs are in conflict. It was honestly a masterclass in saying just enough to keep all his options on the table. So after this incredibly careful tightrope walk of a speech, what did the market do? Well, let's just say it heard what it wanted to hear. The reaction was wow, just explosive. The Dow shot up over 800 points, hitting a new record for the year. Investors basically heard that part about the labor market and took it as a big green light. A rate cut was definitely coming. But just as the champagne corks were popping, the experts started to chime in with a word of caution. They were saying, hold on a second, just because we get one cut doesn't mean we're getting a whole bunch more. And that's when this idea of a one-and-done cut started making the rounds.
And why the caution? Well, because the Fed itself is completely split on this. You've got your doves who are saying, cut now, the risk of waiting is too big. Then you have the hawks who are screaming, don't you dare cut, you'll unleash inflation. And then you've got the centrist in the middle saying, okay, maybe we cut just once, and then let's just wait and see what happens. Powell's job is to referee this huge fight.
So, at the end of the day, Powell's speech wasn't the final word, not even close. It was really just the opening act. Now, the main event begins, and it's all about the data.
And you have to look at the bigger picture, too. You've got Europe over there cutting rates, China's pumping money into its economy, but the U.S. is in this really tricky spot, dealing with both a slowdown and rising prices. It just makes the Fed's job that much harder.
You know, a huge part of the problem is that one of the old rules of economics seems to be, well, broken. It's this thing called the Phillips curve. The idea was simple. When lots of people have jobs, prices go up. Low unemployment equals high inflation. but that connection has just gone flat. We have really low unemployment, but inflation is nowhere to be found. It's like the Fed's old instruction manual is useless now.
So what's the bottom line here? It's that Powell played his cards perfectly. He basically said, hey, a rate cut is on the table, but he didn't promise a thing. Now it all comes down to the numbers. The next reports on jobs and inflation are everything. Is the data going to scream slowdown, giving him the green light for that preventative cut, or will inflation numbers be too high, forcing him to keep his hands tied? From here on out, the data is king.